everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, along with Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, Jillian Turner, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Get out my shot. This is a Fox News alert, and you are looking live at Birmingham, Alabama, where the attorney for Roy Moore is expected to speak at any moment. As you know, Moore has been embroiled in a scandal after 5 women have accused him of sexual misconduct. Moore has remained defiant, refusing to drop out of the race despite calls from top Republican leaders to step aside. We're also learning Alabama GOP is meeting as we speak to discuss the issue. Moments ago, the president was also asked whether he thinks Moore should drop out. He did not answer those questions. Okay, Greg, so we're waiting for the development to come out of the meeting to discuss this, probably to see if they have some consensus regarding a position regarding Moore. The president not deciding to not make any comment about whether or not he should drop out.
Is it happening?
Well,
they've got their files in their hand.
They're walking down the stairs, Greg. Thanks.
He has 24 hours to prove his innocence. He's Jack Bauer in 24.
Wait. That's Sean Hannity.
Yeah, that's what Sean Hannity says. He has 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's just like 24.
Is that it?
They should just turn it into a TV series.
We're moving on from Greg. All right. Okay, we're going to toss to this now. Go ahead.
As you know, Judge Moore has been falsely accused of some things that he did not do 40 years ago. This is a campaign, so you can expect most anything to come out, but, you know, we can't just stand by idly and let false charges go without some answering. We've had a lot of people tell us different things about some of these stories, and we're checking them all out. But one thing I can tell you is we do have some information that we're going to share with you today, and we know that you're going to share it with those folks that you're communicating with about some of these charges. I am Bill Armistead, chairman of the campaign for Judge Moore, and I want to introduce to you Philip Jareggi, who coincidentally was chairman of Judge Moore's campaign for Chief Justice back in 2000.
That's right.
He's an attorney, and he is representing us in this case, and I'd like now to turn this over to Mr. Jareggi, and he'll make some comments.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate y'all being here today. This is very important. Of course, there have been some serious allegations, and we really appreciate the media and what you guys do to help get the word out and spread the truth. Just as an aside, I've known Judge Moore for 24 years. When these allegations came out within the last week, it was incredibly painful for him, for his wife, his mom, his daughter, grandchildren. In these types of cases, there's always someone who's alleging and the other person. And in those cases, when it's true, it's horrible for the person making the allegations. But when the allegations are made and it's not true, it's also horrible for the person who those allegations are directed against. Back in 2000, that Judge Moore asked me to be his campaign manager, campaign chairman, and it was one of the greatest honors and remains today and always will be one of the greatest honors of my life. During that time and afterwards, he asked me to be his attorney, and I was one of the attorneys that represented him in the Ten Commandments case. And as you know, there have been some other cases over the last 20 years. And I've traveled with Judge Moore all over the state, different states across the nation. I've been with him in probably over 100 different meetings and been around probably in excess of 10,000 different ladies in Judge Moore's presence. And not once, not one time, have I ever seen him act even remotely inappropriate against any woman, toward any woman. Not when they were walking away, not when he and I were in private afterwards. That's the man that I know and that I've known for the last 24 years. Now, the allegations that have come out, I hope you understand, it takes time to work through this. We don't have a $20 million budget as a campaign. It takes time, and we want to be correct. We want to make sure that when we say something, it's proper. Okay, so we're still working through some things, but there are some things that you need to know and that we want to make you aware of. During the press conference that Ms. Nelson and Gloria Allred had on Monday, they both said that Ms. Nelson, after the allegations, had never seen nor had any contact with Judge Moore. As it turns out, in 1999, Ms. Nelson filed a divorce action against her then husband, Mr. Harris. Guess who that case was before? It was filed in Etowah County, and the judge assigned was Roy S. Moore, Circuit Judge of Etowah County. There was contact. Judge Moore signed an order in that case as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We've also had a handwriting expert looking at the evidence that was submitted. You may remember on Monday, Ms. Nelson and Ms. Allred, in support, really the only piece of evidence they had in addition to the allegations was a yearbook where they claimed that it had been signed. And they said very specifically, look back at what they said. Everything on that page they said was written by Judge Moore. Now, Judge Moore not only has denied everything she said before, but now flatly denies that. And he says it's not true. We have a handwriting expert, pardon me, that's looking at those. But here's the problem. A handwriting expert can't look at a copy on the internet, right? They've got to look at an original. So right now, Trent Garman, our attorney, has sent a letter, or is sending a letter to Gloria Allred demanding that the yearbook be released. We'll send it to a neutral custodian who'll keep chain of custody, and our professional expert will examine it, and we'll find out, is it genuine or is it a fraud? There are a couple things also that you need to know. I'm not going to go into everything that's on that paper because, again, we need to have our handwriting expert draw some conclusions. I'm not going to draw them today, and I'm not going to make any allegations that we can't support with an expert. There are a couple things that you need to look at. Look at the 1977 after Merry Christmas. Look at those two sevens. And then look below at the 77. And I want to ask you, do you think it was written by the same person? I want you to look at Old Hickory House, which they say Judge Moore wrote. Judge Moore says there's no way in the world that's his handwriting. And I want you to look at it. Look at some other writing of his and make your own determination. That's what our expert will be doing. But for now, I'm asking you all to take a look. Use your judgment. And then finally, after Judge Moore's signature, it has the initials capital D period, A period. Remember I told you about that 99 divorce action? Judge Moore looked at that DA after his signature, which they allege was because he was the district attorney. Well, he wasn't. He was the assistant district attorney. But Judge Moore says he can't ever remember ever signing his name with DA after it, but he had seen it before. You know where he had seen it? When he was on the bench, his assistant, whose initials are capital D period, A period, Delbert Adams, would stamp his signature on documents and then put capital D period, A period. That's exactly how the signature appears on the divorce decree that Judge Moore signed, dismissing the divorce action with Ms. Nelson. Knowing these things, I've got a question, Gloria Allred and Ms. Nelson. Do you still hold that everything written in that yearbook was written by Judge Moore, or was it written by somebody else? That's not an allegation, it's a question. And finally, we demand that you immediately release the yearbook to a neutral custodian so that our expert, you can send your expert as well if you'd like to, so that our expert can look at it, not a copy on the internet, the actual document, so that we can see the lettering, we can see the ink on the page, we can see the indentations, and we can see how old is that ink. Is it 40 years old or is it a week old? Release the yearbook so that we can determine, is it genuine or is it a fraud? Thank you very much.
Mr. Jareggi, what do you say to the answer?
I have some information I'll be happy to pass out to you guys. We have, first of all, you've probably seen a lot of this on the internet.
Please step up to the mic. Thank you.
You've probably seen a lot of this on the internet. These are copies of what was shown by Mrs. Allred. I'll just let you all pass them out if that's okay. And also what we have here is the copy of the divorce papers, not the entire thing. We show the cover page, and then what's so important is we show the final page, which has Judge Moore's signature on it with the DA.
Sir, I have two quick questions. Are there
You
any
see, we have
circumstances-
the Roy Moore signature here, and the DA, which was added by his assistant, the same DA initials
Sir,
that are written on the yearbook.
Bill, does Judge Moore plan to testify under oath like Ms.
And I'll be
Allred
glad to
asked
start
him
these on this side.
Sir,
And since this is a legal matter, the legal expert has spoken.
Didn't Judge Moore say that he
Why aren't you answering
had never
questions?
met her?
Thank you very much.
why is anyone answering any questions?
Interview with Hannity, sir.
Okay, quite an interesting press conference there, Jillian, because they try to get into a few little specifics, factual issues that perhaps they thought would be immediately persuasive to their case, showing that perhaps there might be bias with one of the complaining witnesses that had a case that was in front of Judge Moore, cited that name, that particular individual who had already previously said there was no, contact beyond that point, but then nevertheless a divorce proceeding was in front of him. But overall, what did you make of the tone and tenor?
I think you should call a press conference when you have new information to present to the public, when you have something new evidence, new information. You don't call a press conference to essentially announce that you're going to hire a handwriting expert, which, as far as I can tell, is what this press conference achieved. So I really don't understand the point of it. I think it weakens the case.
Request.
And a yearbook request, which you could do via an email, a letter, a fax, however. You don't have to get, the masses involved in that. I think the problem with this press conference is that, the handwriting is to a certain extent on the wall already. We don't know whether Judge Moore is guilty or innocent of the claims for which he's been accused. But either way, I think this bodes poorly for the party that he elected to serve. I think that this creates major problems for the GOP going forward for the rest of this year, legislating, and then going into next year, winning new seats, because he has embroiled the party in this debate over sexual assault of minors, what constitutes it, if it's okay sometimes. And the whole thing, I think, renders the party incapable of governing right now. And this is something that he's brought single-handedly. And I don't know that this press conference goes any great distance to try and make things better for him or for the Republican Party.
Jess.
Well, there's a difference between being defiant and being a dead-ender. I'd say read the room, Roy. Your time's over. He's no money anymore, no endorsements, no thank you. Was this a response to Sean Hannity's 24-hour ultimatum? I don't know if everybody knows this, but Sean gave Roy Moore 24 hours to come up with any convincing evidence to justify why you're staying in the race and why you are not guilty of any of these accusations. And like you said, they came out with handwriting analysis.
But they don't even have the analysis.
No.
They're just threatening to get it.
Exactly. Perhaps this may have bought the campaign a little more time. I don't think much more time. They're trying to attack the credibility of Gloria Allred. Gloria Allred's credibility in Alabama is here, nationally is here, but they're trying to persecute Gloria Allred. And that's their strategy. I don't know if that's an effective strategy. We're going to find out. But to say that she had no contact with Roy Moore and then maybe he presided over a divorce seems a little ticky-tack, but technically accurate. And then the yearbook thing. I've been seeing the whole thing over the internet and I kind of blew it off, and maybe this raises more questions. Did Gloria Allred help her forge the thing? I don't know. But this is a small part of the larger picture of women coming forward, teenagers, and other people on the record and saying that Roy Moore was inappropriate many, many times and many years ago. So you're knocking down maybe one allegation, but there's a whole host of other allegations, and they didn't address any of them and didn't even take any questions, which I thought was the wrong move PR-wise.
Well, I mean, but you don't even put yourself up there and to ask these questions unless you're going to have some specifics, some answers, but they're running out of time because it's such a compressed time frame and there's so much pressure mounting. I mean, they got a little bit of a break because the president didn't make a statement about it. But, Juan, what I think back on doing and working on so many campaigns is not only do you do opposition research, on your opponent, you do it on yourself, and you see what else is out there, and you hire the best to be able to do that, to make sure that you're properly vetted so things like this don't happen. And it seems to me with the amount and, the quantity of allegations against, you think that some of this would have been told or known to somebody when they were putting this guy forward.
Well, from what we can see from the reporting, there were lots of rumors, but nobody had come out and stated that, in fact, this had happened to them. I mean, the rumors were swirling around. According to the latest reporting, it's not only that he was seen in malls talking to young women, but even in local schools and gym classes talking to young women. So that's kind of weird, but nothing that you would, say, oh, that's convincing or evidence or proof, Kimberly. So I think the difference here is that all of a sudden, with calls to specific women, some of whom were Trump voters and loyal Republicans, some of the women decided, okay, I will, put my name to this charge. That's the big difference. That's what's made this so explosive at this moment. The second part of it is that even while Sean Hannity says that Roy Moore has 24 hours to put forward some evidence that would vindicate him, you have Steve Bannon out there on the other side who has not withdrawn his support for Roy Moore. And you apparently have, according to the polls, you know, a very close race in which evangelicals in the state really like Roy Moore and the fact that he puts God above all, and including above our Constitution, which rankles me. But understand that's what apparently a large number of people in Alabama respect, and why they want Roy Moore in the Senate. So this is you have then really one person left to speak. The guy we thought we'd hear from today, President Trump. Does he say, well, I don't know? Or does he say, like Mitch McConnell, I believe the women? And then what does that mean? They are thinking about asking the governor, Kay Ivey, to delay the December 12th election. She says no so far. And then Mitch McConnell says if he's elected, well, maybe we'll expel him on an ethics charge. Boy, this is getting nasty.
Okay. All right. Well, the president declining to make a statement today, Greg. So still, I guess, giving a little bit of air to this and room for Roy Moore and his team to try to do something compelling. What were your thoughts on what they produced at the conference?
Well, when he said it takes time to work out these allegations, he's actually right. You know, and we talk, if this were in a court, an actual court, you would have time to prepare for this. But in the court of public opinion with an election, you don't have the luxury. You have to rush to judgment because you have no other options. So that makes me feel bad. I don't feel bad for Moore. I feel bad for the Alabama voters who are having a hard time with this, because we put this whole issue, this whole scandal, and it's the prison of two ideas. He's either a pervert or she's a liar. The fact is, you know, there are other options involved here, and one of them is it was a hit piece, and it's true. The bottom line is a voter can think that this news dropping 40 days or whatnot before an election is no coincidence. They can think that and still think he's guilty, but their anger over being screwed by the party or the media is enough to make them think, well, screw that, I don't care. So you know, the allegations are serious. I think the Post article was, I mean, there are names there. There are sources there. This isn't some kind of anonymous thing. But I understand when voters look at this and they go like, wow, this is, why now? Why? And then people will say, well, it's because people are terrified of coming out again, you know, which makes sense because he's a powerful guy.
You're right to point out that they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no.
He can be guilty of these charges, and the Washington Post piece can still be a political hit job.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, and that's
a gray area.
Yeah,
and some of it can be true, or some of it could not. We don't know yet because, again, they haven't had the time to go ahead and actually flesh out all of the details of it, make sure and see what's true and what isn't.
Can I add to that? Just this is the irony of this. In an actual court, you have more freedom to defend yourself. In the court of public opinion, you don't.
It's true.
All right, we're going to talk about this in the next block, Greg. You're lucky.
Oh, really?
Much more to come.
I'm done.
Welcome back to the Five. Senate candidate, Republican in Alabama, Roy Moore, not going anywhere. We just heard from his campaign manager and his attorney, and they are blasting the credibility of one of the accusers, who is a teenager and said that Roy Moore sexually assaulted her, and are blasting the credibility of her attorney, Gloria Allred. So, Greg, what you were just saying before about voters in Alabama being able to hold two ideas in their head, maybe one of those ideas, yes, Roy Moore may have done inappropriate things with young girls 40 years ago, but Doug Jones, the Democrat, do I want Doug Jones to represent Alabama in the U.S. Senate, where he's for partial birth abortion, he's for Obamacare, he's for the Paris Climate Accords? Can they rationalize that in their heads?
I don't know if that's. I guess that's not what I meant. I guess what I meant was the other option is I don't know. Like, everybody's expected in the last week to make a decision in public. If you don't make a decision in again, the court of public opinion, what's your problem? There's something wrong with you. You can't say I don't know. And it's perfectly logical to say, I don't know, when it's not in a court of law, when it is in the court of public opinion, when you're having people that you don't really know and that you just first heard about, and you were thinking about something else completely. You'd already made up your mind. You were going to vote for this person. And then all this news comes in and you're like, wow, I don't know. Is this true? Boy, the coincidence is weird, but it sounds like it could be true because that Washington Post story, it's pretty legit. And these other women, why would they come out? But all of a sudden you're confused. And I think it is a bit unfair to assume that people have to, like, you know, if you have to see it this way.
That it's binary.
It's not binary. It could be, people could go to the polls and say, I think he is guilty of this, but screw those other people who did this to me, who put me in a situation I didn't know. By the way, it could be the Republican Party's fault. It could be they could have known about this and chose not to say anything. Why did some people endorse Strange over this guy? Maybe because they knew the open secret. So it's on them, too. They should have done something.
But it is a binary choice. You either vote for one or two.
True.
And so it is a binary choice. And Mitch McConnell.
Well, a write-in.
I'm sorry?
Write-in.
You could do a write-in, but at this point, it would be a disadvantage to the Republican because it would be a Republican write-in, Jillian, and that's likely would take votes away from the Republican who's on the ballot.
But imagine he gets elected and then the Senate unseats him. Isn't that worse? Isn't that the worst case
because
scenario?
actually Mitch McConnell has been talking to President Trump about this idea. He's elected. Then you have an ethics probe and you force him out, and then the governor gets to appoint a Republican. The governor's a Republican, Kay Ivey, appoints a Republican, and guess who the Republican might be?
A member of the group Alabama.
But you have
yes, Jeff Sessions. He was the lead singer.
But you have the first sitting senator to ever be voted out by their colleagues for sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
That is a horrible albatross around the news.
Let me just get Kimberly in here. Kimberly, I want to ask you about the Bill Clinton situation, because now a lot of people have come out and said, maybe we shouldn't have defended Bill Clinton as liberals to the tilt when he was accused of massive amounts of impropriety with women over the years. How do you see that? It's an interesting.
About Bill Clinton. I'm just kidding.
Never heard you say that before.
Just kidding. Yeah, look, this I think is really like the pendulum swinging back. Okay, so it's Father Time saying, let's go back and examine misdeeds. And there were all of these allegations. Women came forward. They actually went on the television. They did interviews. They were very upfront about what happened and what transpired, and very consistent. But for some reason, people then gave Bill Clinton a pass. You're not seeing that now. You're seeing a circle back on articles, etc., to say, meaning they let him, okay, let him stay in. Monica Lewinsky, okay, let him stay in.
But
he was impeached.
No, but this is important. The people who gave him a pass are now writing articles saying he shouldn't have got a pass. Matthew Iglesias, whatever his name is, I can always get it wrong, is talking about that Bill Clinton should have resigned. But before, he was saying that it was just a political, witch hunt going after him years ago. You're seeing the people who dismissed Bill Clinton now saying this is a story.
They're trying to correct the record.
Who cares what you think now?
That might be a little too late.
Yeah.
All right. Much more to come on the 5. President Trump teased earlier this week he would make an announcement today in North Korea. He did. You're going to hear that next.
There ain't no need to go out.
President Trump held a news conference this afternoon at the White House to give a progress report on his trip to Asia. He made his highly anticipated announcement on North Korea and was very pleased to say that China is on board to help stop its neighbor from making a nuclear bomb.
During our visit, President Xi pledged to faithfully implement United Nations Security Council resolutions on North Korea and to use his great economic influence over the regime to achieve our common goal of a denuclearized Korean peninsula. President Xi recognizes that a nuclear North Korea is a grave threat to China. We made that time is running out, and we made it clear. And all options remain on the table.
All options remain on the table. I think the president's right, and this is an encouraging sign that China has agreed to send an envoy to North Korea. Kimberly, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a tremendous, forward progression, movement in the right direction in terms of diplomacy, working together in a cooperative effort to try to produce a diplomatic outcome. Yeah. That's what you want. Nobody can be displeased at that. Not even Juan.
Juan, I'm curious to get macro picture from you, like if you were going to give the president a grade on the trip, like A to F. What would you give him?
Don't give that option.
Well, I guess, I wouldn't say it's utter failure. I'd say a D.
Really?
Yeah, why would I say that? Because if you look at trade deals, I'd say I thought today he was going to announce that there was some major trade deal, but there isn't. He did get some commitments for added trade in terms of like security, airplanes, but it's almost pre-existing at this point. Then the North Korea thing, if in fact he had, received added pledges from the Chinese, the Russians, from anybody in terms of enforcing more sanctions against North Korea, taking added steps, I'd say, oh, well, that's real progress. I think he made friends, and he hopes that the friendships, the big, wonderful welcome he received in so much of Asia will result in future deals. But in terms of the trip itself, Jillian, not much.
I would give him an A because he did not bow to the Japanese emperor like Obama did.
Oh, here we go.
And also, Juan made a lot of statements about things that didn't happen, and in fact, they did. Japan announced new sanctions on North Korea. Japan says they're going to pay more for their own self-defense. So did South Korea as well. Japan announced that they were going to make a $1 billion investment in U.S. military hardware.
Yeah.
And Japan also announced $8 billion in investments in the United States. South Korea said they'd pony up more money and announced $17 billion of investments in the United States. China, while he was there, announced $250 billion of investments in the United States, creating thousands of jobs. And China is going to strengthen the sanctions on North Korea, and for the first time in 2 years is sending a ministerial-level envoy to North Korea, which I think is a good sign, because hopefully it would encourage more formalized talks between China and North Korea, and we all know it can only be solved diplomatically.
That was quite an answer. I mean, how did you remember all of that?
It's a lockbox.
So
He also invented the internet.
if we average out you guys, we come out with what?
So
Solid B+.
B+.
Yeah, or a B. But, I mean, the thing is, look, he's on the record as having, during the campaign, said, I'm going to tell those guys you're ripping America off. I mean,
And he said those exact things at multiple occasions.
Yeah, right.
At multiple
And what did he get for it? Zip.
No, in fact, I just rattled off a bunch of
things that were
investments,
pre-existing.
Juan. Everything's pre-existing on until we announce it.
Okay.
Greg, what say you?
Oh, I'm still here? Anyway, yeah.
I saved the almost best for last.
Oh, why, thank you. No, it's all about the envoy. He's broken new ground here, and if you can't admit it, it's because you don't want nice things to happen to Donald Trump in the United States. Basically, the envoy is a diplomatic oral version of Twitter. It's like it's like dialogue. It's dialogue instead of intimidation and anger, and it's really, really important. He's made more progress with Kim Jong-un than speakers do on campus with left-wing students. It's a big deal. This is a big. I have very high hopes, and I think they're going to come away with something very interesting. And it'll be a first time, and it's going to be really hard for the liberals to deal with this, because you know what it is? The old line, like, speak softly and carry a big stick. Trump speaks loudly and has like 100 sticks, and it seems to be working.
So what's the final word grade?
Oh, he got an A+ on that trip.
So
by the way, there's so many. The North Korea. If there was something higher than A+, I would give him that.
Yeah, really. That's what I think. Because you said anybody who doesn't see what he sees,
your grade is high,
is a bad person. What is Rex Tillerson? Rex Tillerson is Trump's Secretary of State, and he says we made little progress on trade. I don't get it.
Well, maybe he has high hopes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You guys are going to have to continue this during the commercial.
We're not, though.
And then
I'm done.
We'll report.
We're going to talk about why we weren't invited to Rick Reichmuth's party.
Oh, is that? Oh.
All right.
Yeah, Rick Reichmuth is having a party,
for the first
and I wasn't
time
invited
today from 3 UCLA basketball players who are accused of shoplifting in China. President Trump wanted to thank you for helping to secure their release, but did he get one? That's coming up next.
Oh, my gosh.
3 college athletes accused of shoplifting in China now home after President Trump helped to secure their freedom. The president posed this question upon their return. Do you think the 3 UCLA basketball players will say thank you, President Trump? They were headed for 10 years in jail. The trio appeared before cameras today, and guess what? they did as President Trump suggested.
To President Trump and the United States government, thank you for taking the time to intervene on our behalf. We really appreciate you helping us out.
I'd also like to thank President Trump and the United States government for the help that they provided as well.
And thank you to the United States government and President Trump for your efforts to bring us home.
So UCLA announced all 3 players have been suspended indefinitely while the school reviews this incident. So, Greg, what do you make of it?
Well, that preempted a Trump tweet, so I'm a little bummed. But this is a good lesson for American kids, which they will probably ignore, how lucky you are to live here, because your spoiled, careless behavior will not fly in other countries. People still get caned in other countries. They get executed for things, adultery, rape victims get punished. If this had happened, here's a question. These guys have to ask themselves, what if they weren't college basketball stars? What if the president wasn't there? What if it were North Korea? They would have all been autos very quickly.
Ugh, terrible.
Jillian.
So I think in a weird way, this whole episode played to President Trump's strengths, because the whole trip in Asia, he went around touting the strength of his interpersonal relationships with the other heads of state, particularly President Xi. He highlighted that over and over and over again. And I think that his ability to come in here and secure their release gave him another platform, another opportunity to showcase that. He's right in this case. He is right that the strength of his relationship with President Xi is something that contributes in a major way to the overall bilateral relationship between the two countries, between the United States and China. So this drew more attention to it, and I think in a way is a good thing for him politically.
So when President Trump sat down to dinner with President Xi, he said, John Kelly, the chief of staff, said he leaned over and said to President Xi, have you heard about these knucklehead basketball players? President Xi had not heard about it, and then sent off one of his assistants to find out. What do you think, Jesse?
I mean, I'm very happy they're back, and I hope they're punished severely for doing such a stupid thing.
But they've been suspended, so do you think they should be out for the year?
You know, I don't know. Out for the year, it seems a little harsh, but I mean, that's just probably the dumbest thing you could ever do, is steal while abroad. Like you said, you could get caned in the Philippines. Someone, I think, did get caned in the Philippines for that. But President Trump, since he's come into office, has been very, very on point when it comes to making sure Americans who've been detained come back. He secured the release of Otto. The American woman we just talked about with her husband and family who were captured in Afghanistan 5 years,
with their
brought them
children,
back.
yeah.
The woman in Cairo, he brought back. There was a woman detained, a businesswoman in China for 2 years, brought back. President Obama didn't seem to have, at least from the public perspective, the anxiousness to secure the release of people. I remember the Marine, Tamarisi, was in prison for almost a year in Mexico. A lot of people felt that was unfair. And then the Bergdahl trade, you know how terrible that went. So
let me quickly get.
And I'm not disrespecting President Obama for his efforts, but at the same time, just on the surface, it seems like President Trump has done a very, very good job securing the release of Americans who were detained during the time when Obama was president.
Yeah, I think this is a really good lesson for, children out there and people watching to say, okay, look, the president intervened and he went ahead to try to do something in a meaningful, quick, efficient way to secure their release. The fact that they held the press conference and thanked him, I thought was the right thing to do. It was respectful. Hopefully people learn from this lesson. Don't commit crimes in China or here and get yourself in trouble and ruin your future and your opportunities, and don't succumb to peer pressure because the law is waiting for you.
That's a key point, Kimberly, that nobody's bringing up. That's still illegal here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as if you would just get, a slap
But
on
I
the
must say, sunglasses from Louis Vuitton for this, please. A Gregalogue coming our way next. Stay with us, please.
So even after last week's failed Screaming at the Sky event to protest Donald Trump's election, the emotionally wounded can't move on. Here's Maxine Waters leading an Impeach 45 chant at the virtue signaling sob fest that is Glamour's Women of the Year Awards. Not invited.
Impeach him! Impeach him! Impeach 45! Impeach 45! I didn't hear you. Impeach 45! Thank you!
Adorable. It's their lock her up. Anyway, sullen Democrats are introducing new articles of impeachment. Gutierrez, Cohen, Green, Espaillat, the four crybabies of the apocalypse. They want Trump gone, but they can't exactly say on what grounds. Can you impeach based on hurt feelings? Poor guys, they need help. Here's a solution. A new anti-Trump hotel is opening in D.C. It's called Eaton Workshop. Sounds depressing, like a prison yoga class. The place is built around liberal activism and civic engagement. It's supposed to foster a culture of inclusion, of course, without the right. How diverse. There will be fireside chats, lectures, organic mattresses, and something called sound baths. I don't know, maybe a real bath might be better. Look, I don't know if the world's first politically motivated hotel is a good idea. I put bars on the windows on the higher floors because I jump. Seriously, feeding more leftist identity politics to people already full of such division can't be good. Unless, of course, you're not staying at that hotel, but somewhere else, like here. Come on, even a lefty would take that over an organic mattress any day. All right, we don't have much time.
That hotel's fantastic.
I've stayed there myself for a speech.
And they always watch Fox down in the bar, downstairs in the big lobby. So beautiful. They have Fox.
Giant strips of bacon on sticks.
Remember that?
Oh, fantastic.
Oh,
yes.
Love it.
All right, Juan, you love the Trump Hotel. You say it's the only place you stay when you're in D.C.
He has lunch there.
Yeah,
whenever
you actually live in D.C., but you prefer the Trump Hotel.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Tell my wife.
Now she knows.
Really. I will say this. It's a matter of division among Democrats because you have the liberal activists who want it, and you have people who say, hey, wait a second, what about health care? What about wages? We think that's the basis for running in 18. Don't get distracted. But the fact is, 40% of voters right now favor impeachment, 75% of Democrats and independents.
Very selfish because that'll hurt the country, Jesse.
I don't believe that poll that Juan just cited. I think that's from the
Fake
Daily
news.
Kos. Isn't every hotel in D.C. the anti-Trump hotel? I mean, come on, let's be honest.
How is this a unique, novel idea?
I know. And Maxine Waters, no relation, is the gift that keeps on giving. Because screeching about impeaching it maybe helps raise money, but it's not going to help you win back the House because there's no justification, so it looks kooky, and it's only going to fire up Republicans. And it's hard to impeach someone when the economy is doing so well. Just ask Bill Clinton.
I think it's a political, building on what you were saying, it's a political miscalculation to call for impeachment, especially now preemptively, meaning before there's any, wait for the Mueller investigation to conclude and have some evidence, right, to come to the fore before you start calling for impeachment, because nothing will rally the Trump base for the 2018 like these calls for impeachment. So I think it's a political strategy. It's just not smart.
All right. Well, you know what else isn't smart?
Don't say me.
No, I wouldn't say that. Leaving before one more thing. That's next.
Oh.
It's time now for one more thing, Juan.
So gun violence continues around the country. In California this week, Kevin Neal gunned down 4 people, then attacked an elementary school before he was killed. And just 3 days ago, 3 people shot to death, 1 wounded by a gunman in rural North Carolina. This persistent gun violence is prompting some change of heart, including one on the campus of Marist College here in New York. The school mascot was named Shooter the Fox, and he has now been renamed as Frankie, a nod to Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was born nearby. The name change was specifically prompted by last month's mass shooting in Las Vegas. Good move.
Really? That is like, you think that's great? They changed the name of the mascot?
I wish Congress would act, but, you know, I'll take anything.
Jess.
Okay, a really nice moment at the Celtics-Nets game last night. Not for the Nets, who lost, but Kyrie Irving who dropped 25 points, after the game, took off his jersey and his sneakers and presented them to 2 military service members right there who were ecstatic and really deserved the goodies. And it was just a really nice moment. And he actually broke his face the night before. He was wearing a protective mask.
I was going to say, how stinky do you think that stuff was?
Yeah, but it's worth a lot on eBay.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
fantastic. Greg, go.
My podcast today, I got my writing mentor, Dennis Boyles. He's a legendary writer. If you go to foxnewspodcast.com, I ask him how to become a better writer and editor. So if you're interested in that, check it out.
All right, fantastic.
That was quiet.
Robot news tomorrow. All right, so Titanic, it's back, Greg. You can watch it near.
I've never seen Titanic.
After 20 years, it's
turned
coming
down
back
that
to the
role,
big
right?
screen. And to celebrate the film's 20th anniversary, select AMC theaters nationwide will be playing a remastered high-def version of it.
Do you know the
But don't
iceberg
wait,
wins?
because it's a limited run and will only be here for 1 week. Tickets go on sale today.
Don't tell me what happens.
I can't believe it's 20 years. Okay, Blake Shelton, you may have heard, was nominated as People's Sexiest Man
Lame.
of the Year, and social media's reaction was amazing.
Do you have
We're going to pull up
tweets?
some tweets for you, because Greg loves when we read tweets. And one more thing. Blake Shelton is at best the sexiest divorced dad at this barbecue. Next one. On a scale of 1 to Blake Shelton's publicist, how good are you at your job? And then some people got political. Trump is president. Blake Shelton is the sexiest man alive. Snooki better start planning her Nobel Prize speech.
All right, do a
I
recap
love
because
Blake
Bill
Shelton.
Hemmer and Shep Smith were in there too. Set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The Five. Special report is up